Hello everyone, welcome to NumPy course. So in a previous session, we learned about that how we'll be using our existing data to create our array in a three different methods. So now we'll move directly to the Jupyter notebook. You can observe that we are in a Jupyter notebook to see that how we have to use in a practical way. So let's move to that. First we'll be start to create a list with the help of ND array, that is your n-dimensional array. So start with your import numpy as np. So we have to import first, then move to your to creating a data. So use a variable name equals to then the data inside that the datas. So I use some datas here, particular datas, and then we just want to print it. Before that, we have to use the first method, that is your as array. That method is nothing but this method is used to use the existing datas. So suppose we'll be storing that particular value in a another variable equals to var equals to 2 np dot as array method. In this particular method, what happened, if you remember, we use this as array with the use of your input data, and then we are moving towards to continue with the other thing, that is your d type, and then it's moved to the other one. So here we'll be passing the var, that is because of your input data. So parameter, we are using a three parameter that time, so we'll see one by one all the parameter. The first parameter is your input data. So we pass the input data because in a var we save some input data, and then just print your var2. So you can observe that with the help of as array using parameter input data, we created a particular array. Now move to the d type. So we have to use this, all the d types means your all the data types. So now let's see how we have to use the d type to create this particular thing. Now start with that in a d type. Already we imported, just we'll move to creation of one more data. So suppose the data will be 9.1, 3.4, 56.45, comma 78.97. So this is the data sets we created. Now comes to var2. Suppose one more variable we created where we use np.asArray. In this, first will be your input data you have to pass. That's in your parameter. So the input data is var1 and then your d type. The second parameter is your data type. So if you observe, I'm using here float data types, but when it comes to d type, I just put integer to see that. So now we just print var2. So now you can observe that you can use all the data. If we use the integer, it just truncated all the floating values and it gives the array with the integer. Here we can use float as well, and that particular time it shows the floating array. So this is how we have to use this with the list. If you observe, this is nothing but this is just a list. With the help of list we are creating an array. I'll show you one more example where we use a tuple to create a particular array. So let's move to that. So var1 equals to, using tuple, we use a different bracket, that is your first bracket. So here we pass the values. Yes, we created, and then just move to the another variable to store that np.asArray, and then we can pass your input data as well as we can pass your d type also. So let's see that. So we pass var2 comma d type equals to integer, and then print your var2. Yeah, so this is how you can go with the tuple. So first one, we work with the list to create a particular array using as array method. Next one, we are going with the tuple. Now move to the next method, that is your from. So in the same way, you can use from buffer as well as formatter. So let's see one more method to use your numpy creation. Here where we use as array from buffer, the same way you can go with the from buffer. So let's move to the form meter to understand that how we have to use form meter method as well. So we just create first one list. So list equals to range of suppose 10. So we created inbuilt list, and then we move to the iteration methods. It equals to iter of list, and this will be your variable name. You can use anything in that. You can go with var as well, and then you move to the next where we have to use a variable var2 equals to store the values with the help of numpy and p dot from meter from iter. In this first we'll pass the variable and then d type equals to float. You can use integer also, float also, that's depend upon you. Print var2. So you can observe that directly it's create a list. In this particular area, if you don't want to give the directly list, you can use the same way to give the list on this. And you can pass this particular variable to create it. And here we store and we just go with the var, that is your input type, then the d type. You can go with integer as well. Yes, integer. So this is how you have to use the different methods to create a array which is already there, existing data. Using existing data method, we can easily create a particular array.